Hey guys, Scott Cummer here. Before we get into the interview for this week, I want to tell you about a couple really big things here for my channel. And it's the reason that my postings have been a little bit sporadic the last few weeks, and I imagine it's going to continue to have some implications. And it has to do with a few changes that are happening. The first change you maybe noticed already, but the channel is changing its name from One Man Band to Masters of the Musiverse. The reason I'm doing that is because the mission of my channel, in a way, has changed. When I started this channel almost a year ago, um, I just wanted to create content. I wasn't even really sure what I wanted to do. I just felt this need to do something. And I've been throwing a bunch of stuff up against the walls lately, or over the last year. And now I know what I want to do and what I see that has a future. And that's these interviews that I've been doing with professional educators, musicians, composers, and various specialists in the field of music and music education. And so because that has changed, I feel like this channel name needs a shift to something more fitting. So Masters of the Musiverse is here. I'm very excited for it. And what it's going to be mostly is two interview formats. The first, Masters of the Musiverse, is long format, 30 to 45 minutes with composers, like I said, educators, people like Daryl Johnson II, who I interviewed last year, composer, or composer Erica Savano, jazz guitarist Connor Lee, and talking about their thing and how they do it, how they create it, what they do. So that is one interview form. The other one is the one that you've been seeing more of lately. I call it French Press Friday, and it's generally 20 to 30 minute conversations, so a little shorter conversations with teachers. What's going on in our classrooms right now? I've really, really enjoyed doing these. They've fulfilled me in ways that I just would have a hard time explaining. And I've had lots of positive feedback from people around the state and even around the country. So I'm hoping to bolster that viewership of those. Amazing educators like Pete Sampson, Tanya Barnes, Brad Meriska, Desiree Overay, and this week's interview with Tim Cox from Decatur, Indiana, have just been amazing for me. Now here's the bigger change. What I'm just so excited for. It's been a year in the making, but I am making Masters of the Musiverse a nonprofit, 501c3. Now, why am I doing that? Well, I've felt like a need for there to be more resources for music educators, not for music education and not even necessarily for students, but for music educators. And so it's my goal via this channel to create resources, but also via this channel to raise money so that we the 501c3 can provide things like scholarships for continued education for music educators, grants for music educators, that we maybe will do some consortiums with commissioning projects. I'm very excited about the possibilities here. Here's how you can help. First of all, subscribe and be alerted every time there's a new video. Then let anybody that you think might be interested in on this. The more we grow the viewership, the faster those metrics in YouTube will grow, and the more quickly this channel will generate funds to be able to do that. And the other part of that is a challenge to music educators, because YouTube, it's kind of standard to have 3 or 5 years of building before you hit those metrics. But my challenge is to you music educators, because you're so good at what you're doing and so passionate, is to make that happen in a shorter amount of time. I'm really, really excited for these changes. I hope that you are too. I'd love to hear your comments, ideas for interviews, whatever you might have, hit it down below. For now, let's go to this interview with Tim Cox from Dacatur Central in Decatur, Indiana.
Well, I think we're going to begin here.
Okay.
It's officially time to start French Press Friday. There's a few things that are odd about this week. I'm actually at our local library because I'm paying attention to our state music conference. I don't have coffee. I've got my water because I've already had my caffeine intake for the day. But we are here with Tim Cox from Decatur. Is it Decatur Central now? I believe
Decatur Central. Yep.
In Indiana. Yeah. So I asked you, maybe we'll hear some drums in this recording, and I told Tim not to leave because I said I like these interviews to be very real, and I know that I've had to have pretty important phone calls when another band was blasting away in the room. So this is real. It's not even that loud, Tim, just so you know, so don't worry about it. I just went online, did a little bit of search. You've got some like awesome accomplishments to your name. Your ensembles have done a lot of work. We can even see behind you, you've got, your awards hung up. And but not only that, like you were a Teacher of the Year in Decatur, I believe, once,
Right.
2018.
Yep.
You work at DePauw or with DePauw, is it? Do you
Yeah,
do that
I
still?
did some stuff, with their student teaching office and help them revise some things. So,
Yeah.
yep.
And then School Band and Orchestra named you Educators That Make a Difference.
Yep.
Like, you had even said in our pre-interview, like you didn't feel like you were maybe even the best musician or the best educator, but I think you've got a lot of things to your name that say, yeah, I think you're probably a pretty good educator.
Thank you. I've been very blessed.
Yeah. So thank you for being here. And I think my first question is always, just so we understand, what's your teaching model right now? We hear kids, so you must have some kids in the school.
Yeah, we're on a hybrid schedule, and we kind of started that day one, which is August 1st for us. We started on a hybrid, which was, half of the alphabet on Monday, the other half on Tuesday. Nobody comes to school on a Wednesday, and the teachers are in the building, and so we have online lessons on Wednesdays, and we have as many meetings as you could pack into a Wednesday. Professional development and department meetings and small learning community meetings and leadership meetings. And then on Thursday, basically do the Monday schedule. So the first half of the alphabet, and on Friday, the last half of the alphabet. So that's our schedule during the day. After school, our administrators have said, hey, we want you to keep doing as much as you think you can do and be safe doing. And so this time of year, it's a lot of indoor stuff. We do an indoor drumline. We do 2 winter guards, and we have an indoor winds program as well. So those folks get to kind of have a normal after-school rehearsal situation. So that's kind of what we've been doing, and I think we'll probably be doing it the rest of the semester. We'll see.
So, and you've stayed in that the whole year, like you haven't had to switch into a different model?
We took a break. We went all virtual basically the week before Christmas. No, wait. Yeah, the week before Christmas, 2 weeks. And then we did the holiday Christmas break, and then we were virtual the first week of semester 2. So we did about 3 weeks of just all online learning, but the rest of it's been hybrid.
Okay. So here was in our correspondence, you had mentioned that you've got 2 big contests coming up. One, is it next week or this week?
Yeah, next week.
And then, 20th. And then next month. And I'm just kind of curious then what that looks like. So what are those contests and what do they look like? How are they different this year?
Sure. Well, we're really fortunate at Dacatur Central. We host about 5 major events kind of for the state of Indiana. And the first 2 are marching band related. Those were both canceled. But once we got to the indoor season, the Indiana Percussion Association said we're going to try to have a season. And they are also our indoor winds. They have an indoor winds division, kind of like WGI does. So that is on the 20th of February. And then we have Winter Guard. And so with each of those, I've been working with the executive board and the contest hosts, and they said, let's put together a model that we think can happen safely. Of course, every zone, every region of Indiana is kind of doing a little bit their own thing. Like Marion County specific in Indianapolis is doing a much different thing than the rest of the state of Indiana. And so each school kind of has to follow their own guidelines. And for us, that meant next week we have about 35 groups coming to our school. And they're coming in 4 at a time into the building. And they'll run through the sequence of a warm up and all of that. And so those 4 groups will play. And they've widened the gap or the interval between groups so that typically, you're waiting on standby in a hallway packed together with another group, and the hallways are just jam packed. And so the goal was to limit the number of kids in the building and limit the number of limit the time that they're in the building. And so we'll do 4 groups. They'll compete. They each get like a 15-minute block, and then we can sell tickets to that block. And we're basically between 2 and 4 parents, or 2 and 4 people per student can come watch their kid. And so that e-ticket's good for that 1-hour block. And then that block ends, completely clear the gym, sanitize everything, clean it. Then the next block will start. And 4 more groups will go, and then empty the gym, sanitize it, the next 4 groups go. And so the e-ticket system is set up by block. So your ticket becomes live and active for the block you purchased, and you come in and you show your phone, and then you can watch just your one group, or you can watch the 4 in the block, and then you leave. And so for us, there's no hospitality for like the directors or the judges, or sorry, for the directors, there's no hospitality. There's no bus driver hospitality. Concessions are super limited. Nobody's allowed to stay and watch other groups. You basically come in, warm up, play, and leave. We're not even giving you a space to dress. You got to come in uniform. And typically, we have hallway spaces taped off all around the building, and you can come drop your gear and change, and none of that's happening. And there's the awards ceremony is going to be all online after the event's done.
I think that people here in Minnesota might be curious about the uniform thing, because we've had the conversation looking ahead at our summer marching band on if we're going to try to deal with uniforms because of that exchange. Like for us in the summer, the kids usually take it off, give it to a parent, it goes onto the trailer. So did you change anything, or are uniforms being passed back and forth? What do you guys do?
Basically, the kids get their uniform and they put it on and they wear it. And then it's given, then they're all put back on the uniform rack, and parents will come and take them and wash them and then put them back on the rack. So the uniforms really never go home with the kid, and they arrive every time having been washed.
Okay. And is that typical? Is that what you did anyway, or is that something you
Pretty
do
much,
now?
that was how it went anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. For us, we usually get through a season of marching before they get washed, because for us, they go to dry, like my school, they go to a dry cleaner. So it's a little bit more of an undertaking.
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting, when you start thinking marching band, because we're used to getting dressed on buses or things like that. And, I think the new normal might be you have to arrive in uniform. And
yeah,
that's on you to figure it out. So
yeah. And then you maybe wouldn't know this since you're hosting. Are they having to travel with more buses now because of the spreading kids out, or is that not?
I think that's probably the case, that there's a certain amount of students they'll let on per bus and traveling more. But I will tell you, in Indiana, they were traveling with football teams of 70 or 80 kids, and they just set them on there like normal. And
yeah.
off you went. So
off you go.
Yeah, we've been scratching our heads a little bit all fall with how'd they make that football thing happen? But we don't ask too many questions. So.
Yeah. I'm reminded just talking about this and how normal it is to talk about having to schedule, this group to come in at this time. I'm reminded of what I was told when I was student teaching, that I think the guy told me like 90% of your job is administrative. And I was like, oh, come on, man. And now it's like, I think he was lowballing.
Yeah, he might have been. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I have a student,
and I'm sure
right now from IU, and he said a couple of things like, you do a lot of typing. I was like, oh my, I should have really done more in my typing keyboarding class in high school. That's all it is.
Sometimes. Yeah. And probably, I think especially this year, like I feel like I've done more administrative. For us, we are juggling, like we have distance learners, so I've got kids that are at home exclusively, as well as kids that are coming in 3 days a week. And so it's a lot of time with Google Classroom and Google
Yeah,
Drive. And
yeah.
I'd like to switch gears here a little bit
Right.
and just talk about composers that you might like right now. I really like to talk about like music you're doing that you're into. Is there anything in particular you're into right now?
Yeah, we're kind of in that mode where we just finished up a whole unit for Indiana. This is kind of our solo and ensemble time. And so, we kind of had to rethink how we were doing all of that, and that we weren't really going to put small ensembles together. We weren't going to do the brass quintets and the horn trios and just because there's really no time to do it, and putting kids together in a practice room 3 or 4 at a time, not a good idea. So I've learned a lot of literature for every instrument, just keeping everybody playing. But we're looking at some full band things for this semester, and I'm really big into new music. I want to do stuff that I haven't been able to do yet, but also want to kind of make sure we give the kids an experience with some of those old war horses. So we're doing some Robert Yeager or Jaeger, depending on how you say that. We are looking at a Tekeli thing, Vesuvius, and I have a pretty expansive percussion program here. So I'm always trying to find some stuff that's going to keep the percussion active. So we've done a lot of the John Mackey recently, and there are a lot of guys that are doing a lot of that, the writing, and Brian Balmages, and just even the Robert W. Smith stuff has a lot of the percussion in it. So we've been trying to find some stuff. We did Turbo Scramjet a couple years ago with Will Pitts, and that was really cool and had lots of nice parts in it. For jazz, we do a lot of jazz around here too. So we've been really into the Alan Blaylock stuff and his arrangements and some of his original work as well.
I'm not as familiar with him. I'll have to really look him up. Any piece in particular you'd recommend?
Yeah, we're working on 2 of his right now. We're going to, I think, one of our only jazz festivals this weekend with one of the bands. And so we're doing Hullabaloo by Alan Blaylock, and he actually just took over the director's stuff at University of North Texas, which is, of course, amazing jazz school, everything, yeah. Really. So he's doing some of that. We're doing, what else are we doing? Good question. Cold Duck Time is the Alan Blaylock arrangement of that is really cool. So we've been working on that too.
Excellent.
Yeah.
There must be something in the air, and maybe it's the theme of Vesuvius, because that's been on my mind. I think I've put it on the back burner just because of our teaching model. I bought the flex arrangement,
okay.
So I might still do it, but I've talked to a few other directors, so it must be the idea of like blowing everything up.
Yeah.
That's actually why I'm doing Fate of the Gods. I don't know if you know much of Stephen Reinicke's stuff. Yeah, because it's super symbolic for kind of where we were at, and now we're actually at the rebuilding stage, because we weren't seeing the kids very consistently, and now it's 3 days a week with all of them. So
that's awesome.
Yes. So we talked about this a little bit. We should give your brother a shout out. We talked about it in pre-interview. So Tim's got a twin brother, identical twin, that teaches in where did you say it was again?
Goshen, Indiana. It looks like Goshen, but it's Goshen, Indiana, and the Goshen High School Band. Yeah, Tom and I are best friends and have been ever since we grew up, and went to college together, and we both met our wives at Ball State University. That's where we got our undergrad at, and so he does a phenomenal job up there, and phenomenal system. The choirs and the bands, the orchestras are all great. And Tom's been there about 19 years, and really, one of those well-rounded programs that can do the marching and the jazz and the concert and the indoor and the winter guard stuff, and just phenomenal people up there. He has
All right, so
great.
that's our shout out to Tom, and I'm
Yeah.
going to try to connect with him too, at some point in time, maybe even this semester. So, I guess, is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to right now? I mean, I know you've got these contests coming up. Is that the biggest thing on your mind?
Yeah, that's a lot of coordination and just trying to figure out how do you do this and keep everybody safe and yet provide some type of experience, for the audience. We're also doing a live stream of that as well to kind of catch the people that maybe don't feel comfortable or might live a little further away. We've got people coming from all parts of Indiana, so the travel and the distance might be a thing. So we're really looking forward to that. Like I said, we just did a concert on Tuesday, our chamber music concert. So we're really proud of the kids. We did 5 rooms at a time from 7 to 9 p.m. and just slotted kids every 6 minutes to play. And so it was me and my associate director, Zach. The middle school folks came over and helped. My student teacher helped. And so pulling that concert off was, I think, a pretty big success. And then, the indoor season getting started here for us is a big deal. The jazz band's going out, like I said, on Friday. So it almost feels a little normal, like, hey, you're spinning this plate and this plate, oh, by the way, you're running a contest. And, that's kind of the world we're used to living in. So I'm excited to be able to do some of that stuff. We're looking at some other opportunities later on in the spring. ISMA, our state organization, decided to go ahead and let's do the virtual concert band assessments for us that happen in the late spring. So we're excited to, get some full band stuff, but it's just very difficult because we don't ever see everybody all at the same time. So planning some rehearsals to where we could bring some people in. Our administrators have been great about letting us kind of tear down. We have this giant cafeteria. And if we're willing to tear it all down and set it all up, we get to use it. But putting the kids out there and keeping them somewhat distanced and trying to put together some type of concert band stuff. So I'm excited to get that going.
Yeah. Okay. So this is going to come out of left field a little bit, and it might be too big of a topic to try to whittle down to like a few things. But I'm hearing your drumline working. You're talking about a lot of like this winter drumline and wind stuff. How do you balance that with what your concert groups are doing? Like, does your drumline stuff leak into your school day, or are they separate?
That's a great topic. And a lot of people ask us the percussion. We try to do a good balance of getting them some of that stuff. So it's about, in a normal time, it would have been about 4 days a week of percussion ensemble, concert literature stuff. And then we split this percussion class into 2 groups so that they can cover the concert music for the wind ensemble, and then the other is covering for a concert band. So they do that, and then about 1 day a week of indoor stuff during class time. But the rest of that is kept separate. Same thing with the wind ensemble and the concert bands. That's 100% them. The indoor stuff was never practiced during the day. Color guard's a different animal. They're kind of constantly working on technique, and we have a color guard class. So they're constantly working on either what would have been a marching band show, which would have led after that into some technique building and auditioning for a winter guard season. And then they get to use some class time to do winter guard. And then they would have ended the spring with more technique training. So everybody's got their niche, but the indoor stuff doesn't really affect the stuff that happens during the school day.
Okay. It must then take quite a bit of time for you after school then, if you're not doing any of that stuff during the school day.
Yeah.
And so, okay, this is another one of those things, this tricky question. You talk about the plate spinning. I'm always curious, like how you draw the lines for your personal life and your professional life. Or do you have any rules you try to live by?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's funny because I've had all these student teachers through the years, and I just had a conversation with my IU student teacher that, I guess we kind of create our own nightmare a little bit, but it is a lifestyle, being a band director in Indiana. If you want to, you can make it whatever you want, but it seems to be that in Indianapolis and some of the major programs around here, that if you're a band director, it's a lifestyle. It's not a job. It's just not. It's a lifestyle. And so when I met my wife in college, it was one of those things. It's like, so we're on the same page. I'm going to be married to my job and you at the same time. And, if you're on board with that, then let's go forward. But if not, I completely understand. And my wife was completely supportive of that. She's like, I don't need you around all the time. And it's good that you can go to rehearsal. Our two kids were very involved in my program, and Carrie and I chose to do it that way so that I could see my kids. I wanted to teach my own kids. If they chose music, I wanted to be a part of that. And so each of my kids went through the program and had a wonderful experience, and, called me dad at rehearsal, because I was dad before I was your band director. So you get to call me dad. Nobody else though. And so that's what we've done. I've also worked really hard over the past 20 years or so to try to build a staff that can take some of that weight off of me. And my band boosters are phenomenal because they've been willing to buy into that, I can do a lot of things and I like being at my job. I love doing what I do, but there's no way to be successful if it's just me or a couple of us. So they've invested heavily into staff, so I have a percussion director and I have a winter guard director, and, we have some middle school folks that come over and help us teach the groups as well, so that I don't have to be in front of every ensemble all the time. And, that's made a world of difference, that hiring good people and, that's, I'm here to support you and I'm going to swing through rehearsal, and not because I don't trust you, but just to make sure you've got everything that you need. And if there's anything that you don't have, let's figure out how to get you that, is it rehearsal space or is it time? And so I find myself doing a lot of the managing and administrative stuff for them, so they can concentrate on a few things. And that's what I would have wanted when I was in charge of the groups, is like, if somebody could handle the paperwork and the parents and make sure the uniforms got ordered and have the parents come in to fit the uniforms and do the fundraising and count the money, and, the treasurer with the band boosters can pay the staff. And that's not me. That's a team of people. So, a shout out really to my band boosters. I have an executive band booster group. And I studied really hard, probably about 10 or 15 years ago. I started pulling guys in that I thought had phenomenal programs. So I was lucky enough to student teach at Carmel with Dick Salcedo. And, so I went to Carmel and I grabbed the booster president. I was like, hey, we need to go get a meal and a drink and talk to me about how to put together a really successful booster program. And then I went and talked to, luckily, Bands of America is in our backyard here in Indianapolis. So I went to Scott McCormick and I talked to Tim Dawson at Page's Music, and I talked to, some of the leaders, and Tom Dean down at Castle High School, and said, how do you have such phenomenal programs? And they were like, well, it's parents, talking to some of the folks over at Avon and getting to know the actual secretary at Avon, Barb, and finding everything that Barb was able to do for those guys so that they could focus on other things. And we've been able to do that. And so I have an executive booster group, and I have about 12 team leaders, and then they have people under them. And so the system's working really well now. I'm very blessed that I don't have to be at school every night to run.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that, like, you could probably teach a course in, is the ability to give the work to somebody else and trust that they're going to get it done. And it involves hiring the right people, like you were saying, right?
Right.
Yeah, it took me a long time, and I'm probably, the people I work with would probably tell you, like, I'm not there yet either.
Yeah, we're all a work in progress for sure. But yeah, I've been very blessed, and my assistant director is phenomenal, that he could teach anything, anywhere, anytime. And we help each other out quite a bit. So.
Yeah. The one like tip I would give people when it comes to that issue of like that balance of family and work is something that my wife taught me early on, because I wasn't good at it early on, is that she was always okay if I was gone at, pep band, marching band, whatever it was. But then when I got home, to be present and not be like, oh, I gotta, how did that, And
Right.
so it's like, be present when I'm at home. Yeah.
I'm right there with you, because I think that was a key for me early on, that I brought that stuff home. And then once we started having kids, it's like, I need to be present, like, just like you said, and leave it at the school, and we'll tackle it again tomorrow. I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah. Well, Tim, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate your time. I hope we get maybe I'll swing through Indiana sometime. We'll grab a beer or coffee or something.
That would be awesome. I'd look forward to that. It's really cool. I really dig what you're doing. I looked up, obviously, some of the other stuffs in the interviews that you've done, and you do a heck of a job. That's very cool. Very cool.
Oh, thank you very much. This actually, as a drummer, we'll see if this resonates with you. The conversation, I'm getting ready to do I'm preparing some jazz stuff for April.
Okay.
And so I sent emails out to a bunch of people, and the first person to reply was Peter Erskine. Oh. And I gotta talk with him this week.
Wow.
Cool. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah. And then I had a kid that was trying to get into the Zoom session for a lesson, because him and I kept on talking. And so I said, look, Peter, I want to introduce this kid to you, because then I'm going to tell her who you are, because, she's a high school French horn player. She doesn't know.
Right.
And I did that. And then she was so, like, the whole lesson, she was just like wide eyed. She's like, because, like I brought up, he won a Grammy with 8:30 with the weather report,
Yeah.
And so anyway, yeah. So I'm really looking forward to some things for April too. So keep your eye on us.
I'll definitely do that.
All right. Thanks, Tim.
All right. Take care.